friends, my name is Amelia, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be doing my monthly reset for end of April, beginning of May. We are a little bit late, of course, but you know, that tends to happen around here, so nobody is surprised. But yeah, let's go ahead first and talk about what I read in April, then we will do my May reading journal setup, and finally talk about my May TBR. Alright, so the first thing that I read in April, and I actually listened to this on audiobook, but then I liked it so much that I also wanted to buy a physical copy so I could kind of go through and like highlight the things that I found really interesting. And this is kind of a little bit, I was gonna say it's a little bit like Sapiens. It's not really. It follows human evolution, but it goes a lot farther back than Sapiens to like the beginning of the mammals, and it looks at it uses a few different species as like a study point, I guess, and it looks at what feature of theirs that exists in today's female bodies would have driven how they evolved and how they slowly became humans over time. And I just thought that was really interesting because I think a lot of the times when we look at human evolution, they're always like, ooh, the evolution of man, the history of man, but really how female body evolves is going to have a lot of what's the word, impact, I don't know why I forgot that word, on a species, because it's the one creating new members of that species. So how a female body is able to survive and thrive is going to have a lot of bearing on how that species develops. And I just thought that it was really well done. There's a huge amount of references in the back, like, let me see. It starts on page 503 and goes to page 588. So it is a very well-researched book, and I just thought that it was a really interesting combination of obviously facts, but the way she tells it just like makes it very interesting. She throws in little bits of like humor or will relate things back to modern like topics or like examples, so it's very easy to follow and stay involved. And yeah, this is a book I highly recommend to women, but also to everybody. I just think it's a very interesting perspective that we don't often get in the evolution of humankind. Oh, and I forgot to say, I know I did say I listened to it on audiobook and I really enjoyed the audiobook. I'm pretty sure it's narrated by the author. I think so. But yeah, I highly recommend the audiobook experience as well. And then after that, I finally finished The Wheel of Time. I read The Memory of Light. This is one of those ones that I can't say too much about without spoiling the series, obviously, because there are 13 books that comes before this, but I will say that it was everything I wanted from the finale of this series. We have pretty much the whole book is a battle, which normally I'd be like, wow, that's an awful lot of action. But it was deserved by the 13 books that came before it. Like, it needed to be this big and this intense for it to make sense for like the series and to be the payoff that you've spent 13 books working towards. And I actually have a read and review up for this book, so if you want to hear a really more in-depth review of it as well as see my experience reading it, I definitely recommend you check that out after this. But yeah, I just think that most of the characters, I really liked how their storylines kind of wrapped up. There was one character who died, and I was really upset about that. I did not want them to die, but it was a really powerful moment, so I liked that moment, but I was just really sad that that character died, and it actually made me cry. And so now it's on the list of like 3 books that have made me cry, one being the final book in Realm of the Elderlings. And yeah, now this one, and I think the way the last couple of books have, and this one in specific, have wrapped up Wheel of Time have definitely catapulted it higher on my list of series, which if you want me to do a video ranking my favorite fantasy series at the moment, let me know. But I think these few books definitely pulled it up in the series list because some of the ones in the middle were a bit of a drag, and I was like, I'm not totally sure I'm getting the hype, but these last few have really made the middle part worth it, in my opinion. So yeah, there's Memory of Light. Don't forget to check out my read and review if you want a more in-depth review Alright, after that I was kind of on a Wheel of Time hangover, and I was like, what is even existing in this world now that I'm done Wheel of Time? So I went ahead and picked up New Spring. This is the novella that comes before it all. It follows Lan and Moraine, as Moraine sort of is the unaccepted in the White Tower, and she hears the prophecy that sets her on the path to looking for Rand, which isn't really a spoiler because we learned that like the very beginning of Wheel of Time, but that's what this one is about. And for the most part, I thought it was really good. The pacing was a little bit weird because we spend like the first like 2/3 of the book in the White Tower, like following Moraine as she sort of becomes more of who she is in Wheel of Time. And then like the last like third, she like leaves the tower and all of a sudden she's meeting Len, getting all this stuff done. And I just felt that part went by really quick. And in the first part, I liked the pacing of the first part. I really enjoyed learning about Moraine and spending more time in the tower among the Aes Sedai politics. So we do get it in Wheel of Time, but there's a lot more things going on. So I don't think we spend as much time just like with the girls like in the tower, you know, sort of exploring it and learning what it's like to live there, because they don't spend that much time there in the beginning at least. And yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, my problem is really just that the ending felt really rushed. And I think maybe it's just like that's who he kind of was at the time, but he's not super interesting because he's just like, I'm gonna go to the Blight and die fighting this pointless war because it's my like job or whatever. And so that was not super captivating, but obviously it's sort of, you know, character development. He comes from this and then he finds his purpose with Moraine, and that's kind of the point. But it was a little bit just like, this guy is kind of not that interesting. So yeah, but I do recommend you read this. I definitely recommend you read it at the end when you kind of like, oh, I finished everything, I just need like a little bit more. This gives you that little bit more, but yeah, just be aware the ending was kind of disappointing. But yeah, that is New Spring. Just hit myself in the face with it. Alright, after that I read both In the Labyrinth of Drakes and Within the Sanctuary of Wings. These are the final two books in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, and I did enjoy both of them. I felt, let me go one at a time. Okay, Labyrinth of Drakes I really enjoyed. We go to Akia, I believe it's called. And yeah, one of the things about this series is the world is extremely real world coded, but just kind of dressed up so that she can kind of fudge things and make things up a little bit. And I'm not totally sure that I love that, because it just has you in the book like, oh, which culture is this supposed to be, and trying to figure out what like liberties she's taking with that culture. And I wasn't like a super fan of that. I kind of would have liked it if she maybe fantasized it a bit more, smudged more of the boundaries between real life and her version of the world, just because I don't like it when I'm reading a book and I'm like trying to draw the connections to the real world, like trying to map it together, and then I'm like, well, what is she doing wrong? Because what has she changed, and does it make sense, or does it feel like weird? So I'm not super big fan of that element of this book, well, this series. But I did like the kind of character development that has been occurring throughout, and she's much less annoying in these last two books. Like in the beginning, she's very kind of ignorant of cultures beyond her own, and so we really get her fumbling the bag a lot. But she really improves, which is kind of the point of like the story arc. You know, she's growing and developing as a person, as a mother, and as like a scientist. So in this one, she's much more established as a scientist, but she's still kind of working out what she wants for herself in her personal life other than dragons. Like, what does she want her life to be other than dragons? And so we have a little bit of a romance in this one, and I liked it. It's not like, I wouldn't call this like a romance book, because the focus is still on the sort of dragony elements, but there is a romance element that I felt really matched for the character as well as fitting into the story really well. So yeah, that one was good. And then in this, my problem with this was like, we meet this kind of element that has been mentioned in all the previous books as, I don't want to say too much because it's like definitely a major spoiler. Like if I say what I'm thinking, you will definitely be able to guess it, but it features an element that has been recurring in previous books, and it was just a little bit weird to me to have it just like pop out of nowhere and be like, oh, now this whole thing is about this, and this is like the culmination of her life's work. And yeah, that was a bit weird to me. And also at the end, it's like, one of the things about these books in general is, oh my god, she spends a lot of time in the beginning like setting things up and stuff, which is fine, but then she tends to really condense stuff at the end. So she'll be like, oh, and then specifically in this one, like years pass in like this many pages where she's just kind of telling us what she did. And I get why she skims through it, because otherwise this would become very long and definitely be much different style of book. It would be more like reading one of these where you get every little bit, and I see why she didn't do that, but at the same time it's a little bit disappointing when you spend all this time in kind of like a build up sort of phase, and then things go by in like seconds and you barely see it. So yeah, that is my main complaint with the series as a whole, is Isabel tends to be a bit annoying until you get into sort of the later half of the series, when she's sort of grown a lot more as a person, but it is rewarding to see her character growth. And then yeah, the endings tend to be a bit rushed, but overall I really recommend the series. So yeah, that is the Memoirs of Lady Trent. I'm completely done that series now, so I can check it off of my list. Alright, and then finally I picked up Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. This is a series that I forgot about in my reading series, trying to finish series I'm already reading video. But yeah, I read First Law last year, towards the end of last year, and I don't own the book, so I think I kind of forgot I was reading it. So I was in a bookstore with my dad, and he picked me up a copy of this. So I have now read the second book in this series. I really enjoyed it. It's a very different sort of book from the last two I was just talking about. Far more grimdark, as it is a grimdark. We get a lot of sort of graphic scenes, which aren't really my favorite. I don't really like torture scenes in this, just because I'm just like, I'm not like super squeamish, but like at the same time, reading about some of that stuff, I'm just like, yeah, I didn't really need that. I didn't need it. So maybe grimdark is not like the best for me, but I do really like the kind of morally gray aspect of the characters. Like, you're reading with the characters in this book and you're just like, I'm not really sure any of these people are worth rooting for, but I'm so invested in what they're doing and how it's all going to pan out, and their interactions with the other people around them who are also kind of shitty people. Like, the characters are really what makes this book so interesting. The plot is kind of like, it's not that revolutionary. I mean, it's interesting enough, but like, the plot is like, I wouldn't say super special. Really what makes this interesting is the characters and their interactions with each other, and how we can make you so invested and interested in these characters who are all kind of pieces of shit. So yeah, if you are interested in reading about some extremely morally great characters and you don't mind some sort of more graphic torture-esque scenes, then I definitely recommend this. This is Before They Are Hanged. And I just realized I have not told you my star ratings for any of these, so let me get my stack. Alright, we'll go in reverse order. So, Before They Are Hanged, I think I would go with 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but as I said, the plot isn't super exciting. It's like, oh, the northern country is attacking, and they're kind of like barbaric, and I just feel like that as like a kind of trope or like world building aspect is very overused. So kind of, it's not bad. It's not bad plot at all. The pacing is good and all that stuff. It's just like not that out there, you know? Not that everything has to be, and 4 stars is still a really good rating, but most of it is because I'm just so invested in the characters, as I said. So yeah, 4 stars. And then these two, I think I would give this one 4 stars and this one 3, or maybe 3.5. I honestly kind of feel like this one was my least favorite in the series, and I've heard that a lot of people don't like Voyage of the Basilisk, I think it's called, but for me this one was just didn't really hit. So yeah, I'm going with 4 stars, or maybe 3.5. 3.5 or 4, and then yeah, I'm going to go with 3 on this one. New Spring, I feel like this is, it's hard because I like, I'm bad at star rating books, and sometimes I feel like it's not the most worthwhile rating system, but I think I will go with, I'm sort of between 3.5 and 4. I guess technically 3.75. I don't usually give that sort of denomination, but sure, 3.75. Memory of Light is an easy 5 stars. This is like beyond 5 stars. One of my favorite books I've read in the last couple of years. And then Eve is also 5 stars and beyond. This is probably the best nonfiction book I've read. And yeah, let me know if you want a rating of my favorite nonfiction books as well as my favorite series. But yeah, those are all my ratings and stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into setting up my May reading journal. All right, friends, welcome back to my reading journal. We are, of course, setting up for May, and I wanted to do something kind of spring themed. And the idea that was kind of popping around in my head was to do berries. I was specifically thinking about blueberries. I don't really know why exactly I was thinking about blueberries specifically when I don't actually really like them all that much. But yeah, I ended up doing a blueberry and a raspberry theme. And I suppose I do sort of know why I was thinking about blueberries, because I did plant some bushes, which I know you might be thinking, why did you plant blueberry bushes if you don't really like blueberries? Well, my partner likes blueberries, so those bushes will be mostly for him, but I do like blueberries if they're like cooked into stuff, you know, like a blueberry Danish or I don't know, something to that regard. So basically I like blueberries if you add enough sugar so that they don't really taste like blueberries. And I think I would like them like fresh off the bush. My problem is they get like squishy really quickly, and something about like a squishy blueberry is just so much more gross to me than squishy like a raspberry or like a strawberry or something. But yeah, so as you can see, I went with kind of just a random spattering of berries, and potentially I got like partway through drawing it and I was like, oh, I should have made it a pattern, but alas, it was too late. So we're going with the random spattering, and I still think it looks cute, but I do think that these berries together would look really cute as a pattern. But so maybe that's an idea for you if you haven't set up yet, or maybe try setting them up as a pattern. It might be slightly more cohesive, I guess. And then for the font, I just kind of wanted something that had berry vibes, I guess. And so I just kind of made a font that was like round and kind of has like almost like water drop kind of shapes at the finials and stuff. So that is the vibe with that. And then I felt like it looked a little bit flat, so I went in with a white paint pen and tried to add like little highlights. It was a little bit hard to do with the raspberries because it's like they're made of like a whole bunch of little balls. So it was like, oh, where should I put the highlights? Like on the berry as a whole or on individual balls? So I went with the individual kind of like, I don't know what they're called. I feel like there's probably a name for it, like the little bumps, nodes, whatever, in a raspberry. And then I did also end up adding a little bit of shadow just to make it pop even more. And I did think about adding strawberries, but typically they're quite a bit bigger than raspberries and blueberries, so I didn't really think that they fit within the same scale. I mean, you can have small strawberries, of course, and usually the ones like from the garden are pretty small, but you know, I didn't want to have two like reddish berries, so I just went with the 2 berries, which is what I was planting in my garden, so it kind of works out. I actually planted quite a few raspberries. I have 1 bush from last year, and then I planted 5 more, and I'm not totally sure if all of them are going to make it, because I had a couple that were in my house and they kept growing like little leaves, and my cat apparently decided that raspberry leaves are extremely delicious. So I'm not sure if they're still alive because she kept eating the leaves off, but for some reason she didn't eat the blueberry leaves. I guess they are not tasty. So now you know, if you're gonna get bushes and they have to be in your house for a while and you have cats, protect the raspberry bushes at all costs because they are delicious apparently. But I actually have been working quite a bit in the garden recently. I mean, that's quite a bit for me. Personally, I'm not a big gardener. I don't like weeding, and I hate when dirt gets under my fingernails. But I have been out there recently. We're trying to make it produce more food instead of just having grass that we have to mow, because we were really bad about mowing the grass last year. We did it like once a month or something. It was bad. It looked bad. I'm sure all the neighbors thought we were, I don't know, not looking after our property. So we've dug up all the grass and it's going to be all garden now. Just both nice and not nice because it just means more garden to weed. But it's more biodiverse. It's better for bees and stuff and for us as well because we can eat the food. And I'm not 100% sure what all of the space is going to end up getting filled with. We got a bunch of vegetable seedlings and I also planted 2 apple trees and I just bought some strawberries. So I think we should be able to fill up most of the space, but if not, we've got some giant hostas that could be separated to fill up the space. But yeah, we are, I have barely talked about what I was doing. But we're on the last couple pages now, just my month in review and then my pages read graph. Keeping these the same as last month, nothing too special. And then obviously I have my TBR page there on the front. I didn't fill it in yet because we are going to talk about that in just a minute as soon as I finished adding the little highlights and stuff. I added them to the letters as well. So that kind of makes them match the berry vibe a bit more. And then just, of course, the graph. All right, welcome back from the reading journal segment. We are now ready to talk about my May TBR. And I have one book that I'm going to mention first. So I started this in April, but I still had quite a bit to go. So I was like, oh, I'll just still put it on my May TBR. But then it's currently like the 6th or something. So I have actually already finished this. But this is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. It is book 2 of the Stormlight Archive. And yeah, it was going to be on my TBR, but I already finished it. So yeah, let's just say that it wasn't my TBR, but it's already done, just so you know, for the sake of this video. All right, and then after that, I have my usual stack that I'm never going to come close to finishing, but we like to have options here. So we'll just go from the top of the stack to the bottom, no particular order. First we have Shadow March. This is, I think, a sci-fi series. Oh, it says it's epic fantasy. I don't really know anything about it. I liked the Austin Ard world by this author, so I've been kind of slowly collecting these from thrift stores and stuff. I think I'm missing, I think it's book 3, but I've had them hanging around for a while, so I thought maybe I would start the series. I'm not really sure if I'm gonna like it. There were definitely things I didn't like about Austin Ard, but we shall see. I liked his writing style, so I feel like I could like this, but I've never heard anybody mention it like at all, so I'm not sure. But yeah, this is not like a priority for me. This is just kind of like if I feel like it, you know? Which is kind of how I read in general, just like if I feel like it. And I have a bunch of stuff that's a little bit different this month. Well, not really. But I was originally like, should I keep reading Stormlight Archive and try to finish that? But I think I want to take a little bit of a break from it. Not specifically because I don't want to read it, but because I want to try to time finishing the books that are released a little bit more closely to the release of the next book. So yeah, instead of having Oathbringer, I think is the next one on the series on my list, I have some different stuff. And next up we have The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. I don't really know much about this book. It's set in Dublin. We have a vanishing bookshop. My mother-in-law picked this up for me, so I think I should check it out. It's got, I feel like it will be a really fast read. The words are quite large, and yeah, I think it's just like a fun little sort of magical realism standalone. So that would be a good way to pass the time without starting a new series. So this is about 400 pages, but as I said, huge text, so that is The Lost Bookshop. I will let you know if I read it and if you should pick it up. Next we have a couple of things that I believe they were on my April TBR, but I did not get around to reading them at all or even think about reading them. I have Jane Austen's Emma. We all know it. A lot of people love it. It's like a romance, I believe, following Emma. I'm pretty sure she's the one that wants to, yeah, she's the one who's like a matchmaker. I saw the movie, so I figure I should read the book at some point. So yeah, I want to branch out my reading a bit. going into this kind of second quarter of the year. Oh, we have a visitor. Hi, Gemma. So yeah, we've got one classic, and then we actually also have a second. This is one I've already talked about wanting to read before as well. We have a picture of Dorian Gray. This one is, I believe, also has some sort of magical realism elements, but I actually don't really know what the plot of this is, and I'm willing to go into it that way and just kind of figure it out. I've never read an Oscar Wilde, so this one isn't too long. The words are a lot smaller than that Lost Bookshop book, but we've got big juicy margins in here, so you know, kind of balances out. Alright, and then we have the second book in the Malazan or Malazan. I don't really know, but you know, everybody is gonna say it their own way. The second book in that series, I was originally planning to read it last year, and then I was just like, I have too many series going on in my head, I can't start that right now, so I didn't. And then I was like, okay, it's gonna be a focus for this year, but we are on, don't lick me, but we're on May now, and I have not read a book in this series yet. I don't know what's holding me back. I just haven't been inspired to pick it up, and I feel like with books of this size, you gotta really want to read it, or you're gonna just not get through it. So yeah, we shall try to get to Deadhouse Gates at some point this month, but kind of waiting for the mood to strike, and so far it hasn't. Alright, after that we have a book that should be kind of like a fun little read. We have 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City. And this is just something that I saw in Indigo one day, and I was like, that sounds interesting. Kind of seems like it has the sort of absurdist type humor a la Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's only like 300 pages, so I think this will be sort of a fun way to break up some of the bigger books. I mean, I don't have too many big books on my pile this month, mostly Deadhouse Gates, but I just finished Words of Radiance, so I think this might be potentially an option for the next book that I actually picked up, because it'll just be, I think, a fun, quick read. So that is 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City by KJ Parker. And then the final thing, I catch my breath, on my pile for this month is Relic of the Gods. This is book 3 of the Echoes saga by Philip C. Quaintrell. This is a self-published series, and you could tell, not to be, I don't know, rude, but it has a lot of things in the series where you're just like, an editor would have made this so much better. But I'm still enjoying it. Not as much as, oh my god, the cat hair. I'm sorry, it's just cat hair on my face. It floats in the air off the cat every time I touch it. It is interesting. I'm enjoying it. And I think the second book was a bit of an improvement over the first, so I have high hopes for the third and for the rest of the series. And I want to try to get into some more self-published stuff. But so far, this is not super selling me on it. So come on, Philip, I need you to pull through and make me love this. I love the covers, so hopefully we will get some improved writing inside to match the beauty of the covers. But yeah, that is the final book on my pile. That is Relic of the Gods. This is my pile for the month. As usual, I'm not intending to read all of this. These are just so I have options. But that is everything that I have time for today. So let me know in the comments what you're planning to read for this month, or if you have any thoughts on the books I read last month. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.